Doug, your volume sounds a little quiet. I don't know
Oh, okay. Let
if
me crank it up. Thanks for the heads up. Is that better?
That sounds
way for
better.
you too, Jonathan.
Yeah, for some reason, Tim, so this is like our 16th or so episode. For some reason, every time we film, Doug feels the need to change something about it. So it's never consistent. And it's always like, oh, let me just try this other different thing that we didn't talk about. Oh, but the guest is about to come on. Oh, hold up one sec. Let me just like change this up completely. It's infuriating.
Oh, that's
I
so
like to
funny.
keep everyone on their toes and
Welcome to Find Your Freedom, the best entrepreneurs podcast. Our guest today is Tim Strifler. Tim is the founder and owner of Tim Strifler Online Solutions that he started up in late 2012 as a recent college grad. The business started as a web design company, later moved into product creation and online courses for web developers, which is where Tim found enormous success. He has built a strong online network through his impactful webinars, tutorials, and blogs. He enjoys working from home, so he's able to maximize time spent with his beautiful wife and young son when he's not working on the business. On today's episode, we'll be discussing where to start, building an email list, the often difficult decision to pivot, starting a company in your early 20s, and much, much more. Thank you for listening. We value your time, and our goal is to provide you the best information and entertainment possible. If you enjoy this podcast, take a second right now to like, subscribe, or follow us, and share your favorite episode of the Find Your Freedom podcast with an aspiring entrepreneur in your life. They may need to hear it. Being an entrepreneur is hard. Yo, 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 yo. Welcome to the Find Your Freedom podcast, Tim.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks so much for having me.
welcome, Tim. Thank you for joining us, my man. Let's jump right in here. Why don't you tell us in your own words what your company does and what has set you and or your company apart in the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background's in web design and development, which I kind of stumbled into that. But now I've kind of morphed into doing online education, online courses, and selling products to web designers. So it's like I was a web designer. Now I'm serving web designers. Now web designers are my customers and clients. So online courses helping web designers level up, take their businesses further, and then digital products, software products to help them create better websites. So that's kind of my business in a nutshell. And it's great. I love it. It was one of those things that it started as a side business and morphed into a full-time business. So now I don't do websites anymore at all. And it was one of those things where I was like, well, I'm going to ride this wave as long as it's moving. We'll see how far it takes me. And then 8 years later, I'm still riding the wave. So it's been a blast. Love it.
Can you pluck out one piece that you think has set you apart as you've climbed over these last 8 years?
Yeah. So I am in a micro niche is what I call it. So it's like for someone to buy my products, they have to be, first of all, they have to be building websites. Then they have to be using WordPress, which is the most popular website platform in the world. And then within WordPress, there's all these different design frameworks. So they have to be using Divi. Divi is the most popular web design theme for WordPress. And then they can use my products. So my products are add-ons to the Divi theme. So it's like a niche within a niche within a niche. And that has its pros and cons because I have a built-in audience. So anyone who is using Divi and building websites, automatically they'll be interested in my products or my competitors' products because I'm making tools for what they're already using. And so it's an easy sell. However, because it is software and it's digital, I'm competing on a global scale. And so I'm competing against companies in India and Singapore and different places where the cost of living is really low. Singapore is actually not cheap, but and so I'm getting undercut on price by overseas developers. And so the barriers to entry is actually pretty low. And so over the years, I've seen competitors pop up like crazy. Some fade away quicker than they came about, and then some have stood the test of time and are in it with me. And so I would say what sets me apart is probably the education side, because a lot of these developers overseas, they're building products and pumping out products, but that's kind of it. They're selling features. And so with me, I've taken more of the educational approach, and I've done a lot of tutorials on my blog and YouTube, and then I had a podcast with a partner as well, and then online courses. And then now, this last year, I started doing my own online courses. And so now it's kind of like the education is feeding the product side of the business, and the product side of the business is feeding the education side of the business. So I'd say that's really probably what helps me stand out against the plethora of competition out there.
That's sweet to find a value add like that and to really sort of give that extra piece that people would be looking for. Because a lot of people, especially when they're making their own websites, they really don't know what they're doing. So any guidance they could
Yeah,
get makes their website exponentially better, especially when that's your background. So you're an expert in that arena, and now you're giving them
right.
this free content on how to make it better. That's great.
Yeah, totally. And especially because, like, for web designers that want to build a business building websites for clients, the barriers to entry for them are really low. It's like all they really need is a laptop. They can buy, uh, sign up for a hosting account for $10 a month, and then they can buy a WordPress theme such as Divi for a couple $100 a year, and then call themselves a web designer. Similar to what we're talking to before we were on air. With photographers, right? Anyone's a photographer with a smartphone. And so it's very similar. Anyone with a laptop can be a web designer. And so giving them that edge with education and then products that'll help make their lives easier is kind of the name of the game.
Nice, Tim. Well, way to train up the next generation of web developers. I like how you tied in the learning piece, the education piece with
Yeah.
your business to kind of set yourself apart in the industry. One of the things we like to highlight and kind of celebrate is freedom. You know, we're all
Yeah.
through entrepreneurship and being in business for ourselves, able to achieve a level of freedom in our lives and able to be there for our families and such, and do, you know, pursue all the passions that we have and things. And so we'd like to go back and take a second to look at, you know, when was that moment where you reached a point in your business where you're like, man, I have made it. I have arrived. And not to say that we're not still working to
Right.
improve and grow, but I think we all reach that magic moment where, you know, where you finally get over that hump and you're kind of like, okay, now I
Yeah.
know I feel like I'm good, and I feel like I've achieved a level of freedom in my life. What was that like for you, and when was that?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I would say it was probably when I was making more money than my wife. let me
There you
explain
go.
that a bit.
Shots fired.
So we met in college. I graduated a year before she did. Uh, she's a nurse, so she graduated with a nursing degree and then got a great nursing job here in Orange County, California. And then before I started working for myself, worked at I was doing kind of website design on the side while working for different sales and marketing companies. And I did okay. I had a decent job, decent salary type of thing. But like my wife, Courtney, was always making more money. And not that it was a competition, but as the man, I wanted to be able to take care of my family. And then the goal was always that when we would have kids later, that she would be able to stay home and I would be able to focus on work. So it was like, I need to get to that place where I'm able to replace her salary to where she can quit her job and stay home with kids and that sort of thing. And so when I got to the point where I was having that, the sought after recurring revenue, right? Recurring revenue is that holy grail of any entrepreneur. When I got to that point where I was seeing the consistency month after month, even without having to like grind to get every single sale, and that's the power of e-commerce and the internet is being able to make money while you sleep and have people buy your products from
Absolutely.
across the country or
Absolutely.
across the
That
world
passive
even.
life.
Yeah, exactly. And so so once I got to that point where I started the product side of my business. I was doing web design, and then on the side started creating products, not really thinking much of it. But when all of a sudden that it was like, the scale started tipping where now like my revenue from websites was like almost nothing. It was all coming from product side to the point where I quit doing websites. And I was like, hey, I actually have a sustainable business with recurring revenue and I'm seeing growth and I have a clear path for future growth, that was the moment where I was like, okay, like this is for real. Like I've, quote unquote made it. Obviously, like you said, continuously improving, trying to grow and always figure out new streams of revenue and that sort of thing. But yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's such a fun balance when you're seeing things grow, and then at a certain point, you can kind of take a step back and be like, "All right, I have a foundation here. Like, this is a point where I can
Yeah.
really start scaling and doing things." And it's such an exciting moment in an entrepreneur's life. There's, I checked
Yeah.
Google. Google said there's over 2.5 million e-commerce companies in the United States. What is it that you feel with your
Yeah.
background in web design and now the software supporting side that you think sets good sites away from bad sites?
Yeah, I would say definitely marketing. With all the millions of e-commerce sites out there, obviously they're covering all different types of industries and niches. Um, but I would say without good marketing, like it's worthless, right? You could have uh, really good products poorly marketed that make almost nothing, and then you could have mediocre or even bad products with really good marketing that just thrive online, and they're able to build a community and a loyal customer base that are raving about the products even if they're not that good. Obviously, like, you want both, you want good products and good marketing, but just to illustrate the point, I think it all comes down to marketing, and that's kind of, I would say, what has become my passion is the marketing side of things, to where it's like, yes, like web design courses, software products, that's like the product, but like marketing is the vehicle, and that's what I nerd out over and get excited about, is the internet marketing side of things. And yeah, so I would say to anyone who's starting e-commerce, like focus on the marketing, like make that your passion, because, or have someone on your team make it their passion, because otherwise it's you're not going to go anywhere. Or if you only go, like, for example, some people, it's like, oh yeah, we'll just do Facebook ads, and they have that one avenue of promoting, and they're just dumping tens of thousands of dollars into that one channel, and it can be, yeah, exhausting and hard to really like feel like you're getting a handle on things. So yeah, I'd say internet marketing is really the secret sauce.
Awesome. I love that you kind of separated those two, because it really is critical. Have the product and have the marketing behind it. Those two things together can really make it successful. You talked a little bit about how you geeked out on online marketing.
Yeah.
What tools do you use? What resources do you use to kind of educate yourself on these different topics?
Yeah, absolutely. So I use a software called Ahrefs. It's spelled Ahrefs, and it's marketing software specifically on the organic search side. And so what's really cool is you can plug in your competitors and see what they're ranking for, what their most popular pages are. And so then you can say, hey, they have a blog post that's bringing in thousands of visitors a month. I can go and create something that will compete with it. Obviously, not copy their content, but create something that is better, that solves the same
Yeah,
problem.
we don't have to copy
And
anything anymore
so
with GPT,
I know,
right?
right? Yeah, exactly. Hey, go reword it. Yeah. So yeah, I think Ahrefs is awesome. I'm a big fan of organic search SEO. It's a long-term play for any business. It takes time, but you get that rule of compounding efforts, right? Like, I have blog posts that I wrote years ago that are consistently bringing me traffic every month, and I'll typically like refresh them a little bit every year, spend maybe 20 minutes a year updating them just to keep them fresh. Google likes that, but then they continuously bring me traffic, and then I'll write new posts that for years to come will bring me organic traffic. And so having a tool like Ahrefs that will tell me, okay, well, what are the keywords that people are typing in that are in my niche? What are my competitors? What pages are they ranking for that I could make sure that I have something comparable on my site, so that I can start getting some of that traffic too. So that's a great tool. And then I follow a ton of marketers. Um, Dan Henry, Russell Brunson, Alex Hormozy, um, follow Grant Cardone a little bit. So yeah, I try to follow the big names in the game and see what they're doing and see how I can tweak it and apply it to myself. Because I feel like what happens a lot in every industry is everyone kind of gets stuck in this like bubble where everyone starts copying each other, and it's like everyone's just doing what everyone else is doing. And so you got to go to other industries, follow other marketers that are doing things that isn't being done in your space yet, and then try to apply that. So that's what I try to do too. So yeah, I love following marketers and all that. And as I mentioned, I don't get to listen to podcasts as much these days as I used to because I don't have a commute, which is part of the
Yeah.
benefit of finding the
The
freedom,
pros
right?
and cons of no driving around. You lose the time to have your own
Yeah.
freedom to listen to what you want.
Yeah, exactly. And I like when I'm working, I can't listen to music. I can't listen to podcasts. The only music I can listen to is like purely like instrumental, like super chill, like classical, like peaceful
I'm
piano
exactly
type
the
stuff.
same way. I'm exactly the same way.
Yeah.
If it has lyrics, it's gonna slow down my productivity. I can't do it. It's got to be
Yeah,
instrumental.
exactly.
Beats, lo-fi beats.
Yeah, lo-fi
Yeah,
beats, I could do that too.
yeah.
Which even that, I used to not listen to anything. It was just like silent. But now that I have uh, a 2.5-year-old and my wife at home, and they'll go and do activities, go to the park, but they are here a lot, and so my office is on the other side of the wall from our family room, and so they'll be making noise. He'll come up, start pounding on my door, and so I've had to start using the noise canceling headphones with
Smart.
some
There you go.
instrumental music.
There you
Yeah.
go. Yeah, it's pretty similar over here, Tim. So let's go all the way back. I'm interested. One of the things that's cool about your story is how early you kind of got things popping and started like right out of college. So you got a job. You decided you wanted to go down the web design tech route, like straight out of college.
So not really. So I studied business entrepreneurship in college. So I knew someday I'd want to work for myself, be an entrepreneur, start a business, that sort of thing. But I didn't really know what it looked like. So my first job out of college, it was technically an internship, was at a marketing company. They do SEO. And so that was awesome. Got exposed to that early on. And then I worked at a few different companies doing various sales and marketing roles. And then somewhere in there, I started building websites on the side. My dad's a graphic designer, so I was kind of exposed to that at an early age, but I never thought I would be doing anything remotely similar to that. It just wasn't something that interested me. But I kind of stumbled into web design and started creating websites on the side for people. And it was just stuff that would come my way. A friend of a friend would hear that I knew how to build websites. And so they would ask if I could do it. And I would give them like a super lowball price because it wasn't like a focus of mine. And and then I like kind of had this freelance on the side web design business without really trying. It just happened really organically. And then I got to the point where I was working a sales job and I was so over it. I was overworking for someone else, over having to show up and do the whole grind. And it was like every month, like because it was sales and it was a short sales cycle. So it's like I would work my butt off, and the next month you start at that zero again. And that was like it was so defeating with that cycle. And so I was like, you know what? I know how to build websites. I think I could do this full time. So without having like any type of client base or anything, I quit my job and like spent a couple weeks redoing my logo, getting business cards, redoing my website, and then just kind of like started letting people know that what I was up to. And
Go back to the quitting your job thing
yeah,
real quick. So
yeah,
you kind of glossed over that. I mean, quitting your job is scary. I think we can all agree.
totally.
Those of us that have launched and gone on to our own. Um, how take us through the emotions of that for you. Were
Yeah.
you like myself and Jonathan, where you're just terrified, sleepless nights, and all that, or what was it like for you, Tim?
Yeah. So at that time, I mean, we didn't have any kids yet. We didn't have a mortgage, and we had relatively low expenses. And my wife had a good job being a nurse, and so at that
You had
time
the
it was
prime
like okay,
conditions.
like
It sounds like.
it really was, and I was definitely really blessed in that way because yeah, there's yeah people who have mortgages, kids, a lot of mouths to feed, and so the idea of quitting your job and losing that security is definitely terrifying. So I was in a really cushy space to be able to make that leap. So um, while it was maybe a little scary, it was more like scared of the unknown of like what's to come, not so much like we're not going to have money for food type of thing. Cause I knew, okay, at any point I could call it quits and start looking for jobs again and hopefully pretty quickly be able to find something. So it was like I had kind of a fallback of going back to get a full-time job again.
Did you give yourself a runway, Tim? Were you like, I'm going to give myself 6 months, a year, or were you just going to were you just like, I'm going to jump into this full throttle and kind of left it open ended?
Yeah, I left it open-ended, full throttle, because I don't know. I felt like if I put any type of time limit on it, I didn't want to have like 1 foot in, 1 foot out type of thing. I wanted to be fully focused. And so even though I had that like fallback of getting a job again, it was like that was in the back of my mind. Like if I need to, I have that, but I'm gonna focus on making this happen. And I guess kind of part of like that mindset where that came from was I saw other people online that had full-time web design businesses that, in my opinion, did not have great work. And that was like a huge motivator for me because I'm like, hey, if this person here, this person over here is able to make a living doing what they're doing, and I don't think their work's very good. Like, I definitely don't think that my work was like the best ever by any means. So I'm like, I know I can do at least that good. So that kind of gave me that confidence of moving forward because I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it. And that's kind of a mindset I've tried to carry with me is looking at like when I started doing online courses, like, okay, I see all these people that are making a ton of money doing online courses. Like, if they can do it, I can do it. And so um, I think it's easy as entrepreneurs, especially when you're comparing yourself on a global scale, to get that like imposter syndrome and feel like you're not good enough and can't do it. But like, I think if you just look at someone and be like, if they can do it, I can do it, and have that mindset, um, I think it's definitely a win. Obviously, there's some people who are like, there's the Elon Musks of the world, like born genius. Like, okay, well, yeah, I probably can't do
Let's
half the
not
stuff
compete
that
with
he's
them.
doing.
You're not gonna
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
not gonna
But
build
if you look at
rockets or
most of the people out there, it's like they're not any smarter, they're not any better. Maybe they had other opportunities and were more connected or different things. But like in general, I feel like if someone else is doing something, then I can do it too. Whether or not that's actually true, like that's okay. But just having that mindset, I'm able to get a lot further than if I think that, oh, I'm not good enough. Like, yeah, like, they probably had a rich parents that got them connected to this person and that's how they did. I'm never going to do that. But just like, no, if they did, I can do it. And that's kind of my mantra.
I love that you said that. Yeah, the one thing that really resonated with me that you said there was if you're in a specific niche and you're looking at the people that are being successful and you feel like what you're doing is better than them, that's probably a pretty good sign that you're in the right niche and having that confidence that like what I'm doing is better than these people that are already successful. I need to step up my marketing efforts so that I can start getting some traction because when they compare us side by side, I'm confident that I'll be able to be better than them and succeed.
Yeah,
I think that's a really good
totally.
piece. Really awesome.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
If you're enjoying this podcast, we really appreciate you listening. Please take a second to like, subscribe, and follow, and share your favorite episode of Find Your Freedom with an aspiring entrepreneur in your life. Now back to the show.
And on the topic of starting the company, Tim, what's one aspect of starting a company that you feel is vastly misunderstood?
I would say the level of discipline needed is, I think, that's something that people don't anticipate because, like I said, like if I look at other people and say if they can do it, I can do it. But being able to have the discipline to carry that through, because it's like, yes, that person, you know, if they are able to accomplish it, but I didn't see the level of effort that took them to get where they are.
Right.
And so I think that's something that people don't anticipate is the level of effort. Um, Grit. Have you guys heard that kind of in the business world,
Mm,
like having the entrepreneurial grit,
yep.
which I think is huge. It's more important than talent, more important than intelligence. It's that like that drive of like, I'm gonna get to where I want to be no matter what it takes, no matter how hard I have to work type of thing, no matter what I have to sacrifice. And I think that grit, that discipline is what people don't really anticipate because they see like we live in this age of entrepreneurship with the internet. And so it's like everyone can be an entrepreneur, but not everyone should be an entrepreneur. And so it's like it looks like all like rainbows and butterflies, right? Like working from your house or coffee shops and doing this, doing that. It's like, well, yeah, like there are the huge amount of perks and the freedom that comes with it, but having the discipline and the grit to be able to push through when like all of a sudden you realize like, hey, this is a heck of a lot harder than I realized. One of my really good friends, he was a groomsman in my wedding. His dad, super successful business owner, and one of the things that he told us was that if he knew what he does now about that journey, then he wouldn't do it over again. Because it's like he didn't know what he didn't know, and he didn't know how hard it was going to be. And so sometimes I think that it's like it's that balancing game where it's like you don't know how hard it's going to be, but you need to be prepared to have that grit to push forward. So I don't know if that
I
made
love
any
that. No, that
No,
was
sense.
beautiful.
that really takes me back. I remember like when you first leave, at least this is how it was for me when I was starting my business, is you don't have a ton of stuff to work on in the very beginning, but you still have to show up each morning, like go to your desk, open up your laptop, and plan
Yeah,
to work a full day like you would at the job that you just left. And I think
totally.
what some people do that don't have success and it doesn't end up working out for them is they maybe, kind of lollygag in the morning, finally get their laptop open around 10, 20 minutes of working, then they go and find a reason to go do some laundry, or I'm going to go run a quick
Right.
errand. And then before they know it, they maybe got an hour of work in that day. And I think really blocking out your schedule and planning it out the same way you were if you had that boss looking over your shoulder, or you're sitting in the next cubicle over from your boss.
Yeah.
That's when I think of discipline and what you were talking about there, Tim. It's yeah, planning out your day, and spending productive time actually treating it like it's a job, even before there's real work to be done.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I have my dedicated office and I don't do anything else in here except for work.
Yeah.
And then I don't work out in the family room. And then also during my work hours, I don't play. I don't typically run errands. Sometimes I will. Like if we have like a contractor coming over to fix something, I'll have to take a little bit of time out to, help get him started or whatever. But for the most part, I try to be disciplined with the schedule, like you said, Doug. And then I'm really big on like the like location. So like I said, having the dedicated office. Um, our brains, something I've learned recently, I kind of started doing it by accident and it's been confirmed through just an online course I was taking, but our brains are wired with association, especially with place. And so you can build up an association so that when you're in your office, your brain's like knows that, hey, it's time to work. It's time to get focused. And then on the opposite, like if you don't work in your bedroom or your living room and that's where you relax, well your brain knows that, hey, it's time to relax. But when you confuse the two, it's like you'll be laying in bed and like if you work from the same room that you sleep in, like your brain just doesn't know what to do. You haven't conditioned it properly. And so I'm big on that, where it's like I don't work out there, I don't play in here. It's like there's a separation. And so that's really helped me, is to help keep me disciplined, is having that separation, and then both like time and place, so that when it's 5 p.m. I'm done working. And I used to not have the typical like 8 to 5 schedule, but now that my wife's at home and my son's here and stuff, it's like I need to have that hours. I had consistency previously, but it wasn't like so 8 to 5. It was like, like I would take Fridays off and everything. But now it's just I need that consistency so that my wife can make plans around my schedule and vice versa. So
Yeah, that's really, really good advice. And then just to marry both of your guys' points, I think it's really important. You had referred to this earlier, Tim, is when you're starting out, that there's not always specific things to be doing. You're finding things to be working on. So it's like, yeah, you pop
Right.
that
Yeah.
laptop open, like, all right, who am I going to learn from today? And what one of these people who is being successful that is already making a lot of money, what wheel do they have that I can learn from? I'm not going to reinvent these wheels. I'm going to try and utilize some of these ideas already out there and implement them into my company. So you're really kind of creating work for yourself. And I think that's a lot
Yeah.
of the reasons a lot of entrepreneurs fail in that first year is, kind of Doug was talking about this. You get the laptop open, you're like, all right, caught up on my emails. Like what
Right.
else is going on here today? And it's like, no,
Yeah.
we need to like find the things that you're going to create and put on your own list on, all right, here's the projects I need to do today. And I think I use
Right.
like Asana and I use Google Calendar
Yeah.
to try
Same.
and manage some of those things. What other tools do you use for your time management? Or can you bring us back to the early years? Is there anything that resources that you felt were valuable for you to succeed in that early year period?
Yeah, absolutely. So I use Evernote religiously. I have for years. Like my brain is in Evernote. They have an awesome desktop app. They have an awesome iPhone app or mobile app. And so my brain is in Evernote. So it's like I have so many different notes, and it's just like I need to. If I think of something, I'll open up my phone, create a new note, or add it to an existing note, and then it's going to sync with the desktop version. And so I do that for like project planning or like content ideas or different things like that. And so I'm the only one that uses that. For like collaborating and stuff, I use Google Docs, Google Sheets, which is awesome for collaboration. And then I have a team now, so now I use Slack. That's how my team and I communicate. We live in Slack. It's amazing. And so like Slack is like, yeah, one of the most crucial tools
Yeah,
for
Doug
my
Doug
business
introduced
these
it to me
days,
and it's just
which
like,
is
oh
which is
man, I
awesome.
see how it got so huge. This is like so beneficial for
Yeah.
communication.
Oh yeah, it's so simple and clean and like minimal distractions, just focused on the messaging. But you can like bring in the different integrations and stuff too. So yeah, Slack is awesome. Let's see, what else do I use? Zoom, obviously. One tool that is really handy if you have multiple email accounts. So I have several email accounts that I check daily in addition to like personal. So I use an app called Shift because all of my emails are Gmail based, whether they're Google Business or the free Gmail account. And Shift is a desktop app that brings them all together, which is really nice. You don't have to have a bunch of tabs open in your browser.
Nice.
So that's a small but impactful tool that I use quite a bit. Um,
That might be nice for me. I got about 50 tabs open over here right now.
yeah,
Um,
which I mean, I still have that too, but it would be,
Good. I'm glad to hear
50
you guys
plus
say
like
that. It makes me
five.
feel better about myself as I look at my 38 tabs on my 5 different things right now.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And I think that's just, yeah, inevitable of any business owner just trying to juggle a bunch of different things. But yeah, I feel like that's pretty much it. The rest are kind of more like web design specific, but yeah, having good tools definitely helps a lot.
Sounds like Evernote and Slack have been huge for you there, Tim. I tried a little
Yeah.
Evernote back in the day. It didn't really resonate with me as much, but definitely Slack. I mean, I don't know what we would have done at our company without Slack over these last 8 years.
Oh yeah,
Now,
for sure.
wanted to talk a little bit about your pivot. I think, pivot's kind of interesting. I think many businesses need to do it because what you initially start, the path you start out on doesn't end up being the one that where you end up eventually finding the success. What was the pivot decision like for you? Was it a sudden epiphany, or was it more kind of a gradual, like, I'm seeing a little bit more opportunity over here. Let me kind of
Yeah.
change paths. Like what was it like for you?
Yeah, no, great question. So, I was building all my websites on the Divi theme, and so Divi came out in 2013. So I was using the company behind Divi, Elegant Themes. I was using their products for years and years before that, but they came out with Divi, and it was like this groundbreaking theme that was like powerful enough for professionals to use to create websites for clients, but easy enough for beginners to use too. And it was a total game changer, and there wasn't really much anything else on the market at the time. Now they have a bunch of competition, but because it was such a game changer, there was a huge community that started to grow around it of people wanting to learn like tips and tutorials, and then people started creating templates for it. And I remember at the time, like just so arrogant, seeing people create templates. I'm like, that's so lame. Like, there's no market for that. Like, yeah, there's a lot of people using Divi, but no one wants to buy that. And I was, just totally like my ego. And
Young and
I
overconfident.
what's that?
Young and overconfident.
Yeah, exactly. And so I had a client project. The client wanted, they had two logos. They had like their text logo, and then it had kind of like their logo mascot. And so they wanted their text logo to be at the top when you first land on the website. But as soon as you started to scroll, they wanted that to transition into their little mascot. And I'm not a coder. I know enough to like break things and be dangerous. But so I had my developer build it for me. And so she built that. And then I was like, okay, well, I spent, I don't know how much, maybe $500 building this little thing just for this one website. I was like, this would actually work for any website that's using Divi. People are starting to sell Divi products. I'm going to take this little product and just see what happens. Like, see if there's a market for it. And so there was a website that created like a marketplace specifically for Divi products. And so I put it on there as a $5 product. I didn't by any means get rich from it, but it was like a light bulb moment where I was like, oh, like there actually is a market. Like people are buying this. It's a simple little product, but I see an opportunity here. So then I spent a couple months building an e-commerce template for Divi, and there wasn't at the time any e-commerce products for Divi, and so
Oh,
there was
wow.
definitely a need for it. And that was a more expensive product. That was like a $150 product, and so that like blew up. Again, it was on a marketplace, so I was sharing 30% with the marketplace, but it was like I was making several thousand a month from that, like at least for like the first like 6 to 8 months. And it was like, wow, like, okay, this isn't enough to live off of yet, but I was seeing that
Yeah, it
opportunity.
shows
So I was like,
proof of
I'm just going to
concept.
keep
Yeah.
proof of concept. Exactly. So it was like, I'm going to keep chasing the money. Like,
And it wasn't that hard, it sounds like, to develop the product and just put it out there to test it.
yeah, exactly. Which was a blessing and a curse, because it was like the
Right.
low barriers to entry meant that
Right.
a lot more
Right.
competition came, but so much of the competition, like I mentioned before, they would come and go. They would come make a lot of noise and try to promote a lot, and then they realize like, hey, like this is actually harder than I thought, and then they'd give up and
They
move
said, "We
on, and
can't
then
compete with Tim. Let's shut that.
yeah,
Let's shut that down."
That's obvious. And one of the cool
oh my
things about
gosh,
software also is you kind of put a lot of front loaded work into it, but then an infinite amount of people can purchase the same product and there's no added cost for you. Whereas if you have a physical product, you can
exactly,
have 100,000 people buy it, but every time it's bought, you have a expense going out. So that's kind of a magical thing
right?
that comes along with software. And
Yeah,
it's something people should build into when they're thinking about starting companies. Like, think about those scaling things as you're coming up with your concept of what you feel your passion is that you want to go for. And unfortunately, Tim
yeah.
had a nice little software trick.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. The digital product space is incredible. Um, yeah, there's not the same level of added costs with like a physical product. With software though, especially with like website software, and especially because there's a lot of amateurs out there, there's definitely is a support cost. So I
Right.
have customer support people that will help customers all the time, and then there's um, there's the support, and then there's the maintenance side where uh, something breaks and we have to fix it, or someone will buy our product and then buy a different product, and they conflict, right? Like their code is conflicting. So then we have
Interesting.
to go and make changes. So there is some ongoing cost to support the customers, but it's not like that. There's no like the incremental cost of selling just one more product is zero. Um,
That's a
but
good
yeah,
point.
but to take that one step further is um or I guess let me clarify, compared to a physical product though, it's very
Right.
low. But where I found the most, I guess you could say, from like a profit margin standpoint, the highest margins is with online courses, because it's the same thing like you said, Jonathan, where I could sell more, and I'm not going to have to pay to produce it again, right? I've already made it
Right.
on the front end. But unlike software that has the support costs and the maintenance and fixes and the costs associated with that, with the online courses, it's almost nothing. Like I don't have any software to fix. I don't have any technical support. Like there's some level, like people have questions and stuff, but it's nothing compared to the software side. And so like, if I could tell someone like one type of business model that in my mind is like the most perfect business model, it's online courses, because you can create it once, sell it over and over again, and it doesn't have the same level of online costs as even software. So to me, that's like the holy grail of business model. There's a lot of amazing business models out there, but yeah, online
As long as the
courses is
content
incredible.
remains kind of evergreen and timely, right?
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the big
exactly.
trick. You have to be the expert that people would want to hear.
Right.
So I guess the two
Totally.
pieces of the upfront costs is, like, for you, you had this huge upfront cost of creating that beautiful background that we're seeing here on the podcast today with all these different light these different light use.
Right. Yeah.
But the other piece is, obviously, you built up a lot of time in becoming an expert in that, in your micro niche, which I love that term
Yeah.
that you use. I think that's really powerful. And the micro niche, you found out that it was big enough that if you were the greatest in the micro niche, then it was scalable enough to be as big as you want. And that's one thing I think also that entrepreneurs want to take into account when they're moving forward in their planning of their business is, how big can this get? Is this something that
Right.
can really grow to what I want it to be? Or is my micro niche too small of a micro niche and I need to kind of macro it a little bit? So I love that you brought that up. I think that's
Totally.
a really good point, Tim.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you can be a big fish in a small pond, which is great. But is that pond big enough, like you said, to accommodate? And that was the thing where it was like, when I started 8 years ago with this business, I was like, I'm going to ride this wave as long as it takes me, knowing that like this is a micro niche. So like eventually, like I'm not going to be able to continue growing. And so I've like over the years been tempted to like, okay, well, maybe if I create general WordPress products, not specific to Divi, or maybe I like, go out completely. But it's like, well, no, I have this audience. And so I've stuck with it, and I'm glad I have. But yeah, there's always that temptation of like going into a bigger pond, so to speak.
You just mentioned your audience, Tim. One of the things that I wanted to talk about with you today is you've shared with me about the power of your email list and building that out. Something
Yeah.
that I don't really have any experience with. I'm not sure how much of that Jonathan has done. Do you remember coming to that realization, like, man, I have a pretty cool little business here, but I really need to start, building my community
Yeah.
and getting this email list going. What was that realization like?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for bringing that up. So I mentioned I was initially creating products and putting them on a third-party marketplace that was selling them, and they were taking a cut. And so pretty early on, like I would say within 4 months or so of doing that, I was like, okay, I need to create my own website so I can sell the products directly, not have to share a cut, and then I can remarket to them and that sort of thing. And then also just be able to own the customer experience too. When you're selling through other platforms, you don't own that experience. And so, and that wasn't just like a light bulb moment for me. Like that was things I had learned from other marketers following them. So that was something I did early on. And it was one of those things where I think it's like I had heard that from other marketers. So I was like, okay, I need to do that.
Right.
But I didn't really fully understand like the gravity of that, and like the how impactful it would actually be to build up my own audience, my own email list. And so it was like one of those things I'd heard a lot, like, yeah, you have to build an email list. You got to own the customer experience. Like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that. And I did, but it was kind of like I was just following advice without really understanding like how good
That's
that
where we are
advice
right now.
was.
Yeah, we keep hearing that, and our whole goal with the Find Your Freedom is to create a community where entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
successful entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs can all kind of work together, and kind of have this good synthesis. And that's something that we keep hearing is like, yeah, community. You need to have an email list. You need to kind of really focus on building out the community and making sure that they have a platform to communicate. So that's where we are right now. It's like, all
Yeah.
right, we keep hearing this, we got to get on
Yeah.
it. You acted on it, and then what has now been the real gains you've seen from that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, or let me take a quick step back. So I think the best way I've heard it explained is like within internet marketing, there's traffic you own and traffic you don't own. And I can't remember who I learned this from, Russell Brunson, Anthony Morrison, one of the two. And so with traffic you don't own, that's like Facebook, whether that's organic or paid ads, Instagram, organic, paid ads, even like TikTok.
Yep.
It's like you might have a huge audience on TikTok, but you don't own that audience. Algorithms change, accounts get shut down, platforms get censored, like all different types of things can happen. And so the best thing you want to do is if you do have that platform, or an audience on a social media, or even if you don't, is just start getting traffic that you do own, which is the email list, because the email list you can go back to as many times as you want and bring them back to your website, your podcast, whatever it is, and get them to continue buying, listening, reading, whatever. And so that's kind of the recipe there is to build traffic you own, which is essentially an email list. And so for me, you asked like how has that been impactful? So I've been doing online courses since like 2018, but it was with a partner. And then this last year, I kind of branched out and started doing them solo by myself on my own site. And I didn't promote the course like at all outside of my email list. And I was able to have a six-figure launch within just a couple months just from my existing audience.
So
And
awesome.
so like that was huge because it was like I didn't have to pay for ads.
Right.
I didn't have to
Built in.
do anything except for send my existing audience to a webinar or to a landing page. Most of them bought through the webinar. And it was like people want to hire or buy from people that they know, like, and trust, right? And so it's like, who's going to know me, like me, and trust me more than the people who are already on my
Current
list?
customers,
So
absolutely.
I love how you've built that out, Tim. It sounds like such a huge come up for your business and a level up for yourself. So for those kind of just getting started out with, thinking that they want to create this email list, what are some first one or two steps that you think are good for people to consider taking?
yeah, absolutely. So I think having an email list based around content and value is the best. So for example, like you can give people like a freebie and say, hey, come uh, subscribe and we'll give you this freebie, right? Like you'll see ads for it all the time. Like get this free ebook, this free PDF. And while that's good, I think a lot of times what that does is it gets a lot of people who just like free stuff on your email list. So when you have something to sell, it's like, well, they may or may not buy. But I think if you build it around value and content, where it's still technically free stuff, right? It's free content. You'll get people that are hungry to learn. So as you continue sending them emails about new content, new value, new podcast episodes, new videos, they're going to eat it up because that's what they subscribed for, was to get more of that. And then again, you're going to be simultaneously helping them know you, like you, trust you more, so that when you do have something to sell, if you have something to sell, then they're going to more likely
I
buy.
love
And
that.
so and then I've seen it done really well, and I do this too, is combining the two, where it's hey, here's a freebie we're going to give to you, this free PDF, this ebook, whatever, this exclusive video, exclusive training. Subscribe and we'll give it to you for free. Plus, you're going to get on our email list and get weekly updates of free additional content and value. And so kind of marrying the two together, then it's like, whoa, like, and then you're basically nurturing that list with more content, more free value. And then over time, they're going to become raving fans. So that's easier said than done.
Right.
Constantly creating content is a lot of work, as you guys know with the podcast. It takes a lot of effort. But yeah, I've kind of gotten out of the habit of creating content regularly, and I'm like, I need to get back to that, because that was like such a huge part of my growth for the first 7 years. In the last like year and a half, I've like kind of gotten away from that, and I need to get back to it because it's so impactful.
That's awesome. I loved you referenced a little earlier that you're one of your bachelor friend, or one of the friends that was part of your bachelor's,
Yeah.
his dad gave you the advice that
Yeah.
if I went back, I wouldn't do it the same. So I wanted to ask you, if you were talking
Yeah.
to 20-year-old Tim when you were starting out, what would be some of the advice that you now know that you wish that Tim would have known?
Besides buy Bitcoin when it's only like $100, right?
Outside of all the crypto world, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I would say uh probably to create more content on a regular basis, to start building an audience sooner. Um because that was it, like I said, it was something I did um decently regularly for a while, but it was like I would get so caught up in like launching the products that then I would the content and the value and the audience building kind of got pushed to the side. And so it was like this like push pull type of thing where it was like, okay, I need to uh, grow my audience. I'll create more content. And then, okay, I got to launch a product. So it was like I was always trying to balance the two rather than finding a way to do both well. So I'd say that's probably something that I would try to do differently, and maybe probably start a podcast, because I had the podcast with a partner. It was a WordPress podcast, and so now I'm thinking of branching out and creating a more general like marketing podcast. Um, and so, but now it's like, man, there's so much competition. Like if I would have done this 10 years
Right.
ago, like I would be, at the top. So
Well, yeah. One of my favorite quotes though is the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is to plant it today. So, all those things,
today,
right? There's
boom. Yeah.
always these new, this new social media
Yeah.
app that's going to come out, this new whatever else. And Doug and I talked about that same concern, starting this podcast. Like,
Yeah.
well, there is quite a few really successful entrepreneur podcasts out there. But you kind of find your
Yeah.
own lane, and and that imposter syndrome that you referred to also kind of comes into the picture also. It's just like, look, we
Right.
have
Yeah.
both a lot of good experience, and we have a lot of really cool people we know, and those stories we feel are really valuable to get out there. And that's why I think we were kind
Yeah.
of finding our niche here. So I totally understand what you're saying there.
For sure. Yeah, and the hunger for content is at an all-time high. So it's like, even though there is a lot of competition, it not just podcasts, but for everything, it's like just because someone listens to 3 other entrepreneur podcasts doesn't mean they won't listen to yours. And actually there's a really good chance they would also listen to yours if they listen to those other 3. And so that's, I feel like, again, the emphasis on content, whether it's podcasts, videos, blog posts, whatever, is there's people like are constantly absorbing content, right? It's like why you see Disney doing these multi-billion dollar acquisitions for like Marvel and everything, because it's content, and content is king.
And it can
Yeah.
live forever. Yeah, I love that you said that. We all have such different paths to success, and I love that you came on today because your niche, I think, is so unique, and I think it's
Yeah.
like misunderstood even. So we really appreciate you giving us a glimpse into this really interesting. All of us are on websites all day, every day, and you gave us a really interesting
Yeah.
piece into it. So super appreciate you doing that. Where can we send people
Yeah.
that want to learn more about you, potentially get some of your information?
Yeah, absolutely. So my personal website, timstrifler.com. I'm currently in the beginning stages of a rebrand, because right now it's basically a time capsule from 8 years ago when I was doing the websites for clients, and I haven't updated, I haven't touched it because I've been so focused on the product business, which is divylife.com. So I'm going to rebrand timstrifler.com and make it more of like a landing page, which then shows my, here's the product business, here's the online courses, here's the hopefully podcast that will be starting in the near future. So yeah.
Thanks so much, Tim. We super appreciate you coming on. Everyone go check out timstrifler.com and have a great day.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate you, buddy.